of the Muslims is not such that we can say that the Muslims have much glory at all. And the people are looking enviously upon their situation. It can't be said. Because of this pomp and show, some countries are looking towards them with jealousy. We can say that there are some countries, they have got the wealth of oil, and they are looking at that, and they are actually eyeing that, putting their eyes upon that wealth. Rather, the Muslims today, they are the richest countries for their sustenance and protection. They are looking towards non-Muslim countries. So at this time, apparently, the Muslims, they do not have any glory of their own, nor there are any signs of progress in them. Yes, the degradation and humiliation, that is quite is seen by all those people who have the sympathy and love of Islam in their heart. So what can we say? That this promise of victory which was given by Allah Almighty is not being fulfilled? Or the time of this promise has already lapsed? Is it only temporary, only time related? Or is there any weakness in the quality of Allah Almighty being Al-Qawi and powerful? All these things are wrong. The promise of Allah Almighty is true. And Islam, till the end of the time, its progress and the prophecy regarding that one is absolutely true. And like all other attributes of Allah Almighty, the attribute of Al-Qawi, Almighty, that is going to remain there all the time. And inshallah it will remain there. And this victory, and with this attribute of Ghaliba and dominance, in order to prove that Allah Almighty in this age, and He has sent the Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ as the Imam of the age, to whom in these very words Allah Almighty revealed to him, Kataballahu la ghalibanna ana wa rusuli. Same wording was revealed to him. So the religion of Islam, in the light of its teaching, once again in this light of Islam has to spread in the world. And this faith going to be established very strongly in the world. And regarding his being Al-Qawi, and with that reference that Allah Almighty is Al-Qawi and Allah Almighty will help the promised Messiah, He revealed several times to the promised Messiah ﷺ. And through revelation He informed about this point. In one place He says, Allah Almighty says, addressing the promised Messiah ﷺ, Quwwatur Rahman le Ubaidullah Samad, that this is the power of Allah Almighty for His servant who is very humble. And Allah Almighty, Innahu Kaviyyun Aziz, and He is Kavi and Aziz, He is mighty and powerful. And then He says, Inna Rabbi Kaviyyun Qadir, Innahu Kaviyyun Aziz, that my Allah has got might and power, and He is going to be dominant and victorious. Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ, he has this revelation that मैं अपनी चमकार दिखलाऊंगा, and I will show the manifestation of my power. I will raise you. There was a warner came in the world, but people did not accept him. But Allah Almighty will accept him, and with mighty signs will show His truthfulness. There is a trial here. So like the prophets with firm resolve, you also face that. And when Allah Almighty will manifest His might over the mountains, they will be raised to, they would be reduced to pieces. And Allah Almighty is Rahman, who will show His manifestation for His purpose. Muqamun la tatarakkal, that that Abdullah Samad is a position that it is granted by Allah Almighty and not through efforts of human beings. This position of Allah Almighty, and when you have to become His true servant and you are not in need of any other help, this is a special thing which is bestowed upon people, and it is only given to the person when a person walks towards Allah and progresses in His direction. And this blessing is entirely, purely a blessing of Allah Almighty. It is not derived through effort, but it is the something which is bestowed by Allah Almighty. And the person who has got a link with Allah, relationship with Allah Almighty, it is given to those people. Hazrat Masih Maud says that Allah Almighty has given me this glad tidings that some rulers and kings will join my community, and He has told me that I will give you blessing upon blessing, so much so that things shall seek blessing from your clothes. And these people who will be finding these blessings, they will enter into my path, and by their entering into the path, that the whole government would be, then of course the whole nation will enter into that. And then Allah Almighty showed me those kings, those who were riding on the horses' mounts, and they were 5 or 6. So these are the promise of Allah Almighty, who has got all the power, and who always fulfills those promises which are given to His prophets. And up till this time, we have seen so many promises being fulfilled, given those which were given by Allah Almighty. By looking at the state of our helplessness and being the victim of this torture, and particularly which is in Pakistan, our country, and also in some Arab countries, and people, they say that this all claim is just the claim of a fanatic. People have considered it like that, and the decree of Allah Almighty always was dominant. Hazrat Masih Maud says that this is the tradition of Allah Almighty, and since the human beings have been created in this world, and He has been showing this tradition consistently, that He always helps His prophets and gives them the dominance, as He says, Kataballahu la'aghlibanna ana wa rusuli. And the meaning of dominance is that, as the purpose of these prophets is that the argument of Allah should be fulfilled on the earth, nobody could be able to compete with that, and then Allah Almighty with mighty signs establishes the truthfulness of those prophets. The meaning of this Ghaliba is that the argument and the message should be clearly established on the world, in the whole world, and that piety which they want to spread, then the sowing of the seed is sown, seed of the piety is sown, the truth which is the messengers bring, the seed of that is sown into the ground, but the full completion of that is not done through their hands, but He causes them to die at a time which has an element of a defeat and worry and anxiety with it, and the opponents, they become very happy to see that. And when they have done all this laughing and mocking, then Allah Almighty shows His mighty hand and makes the situation in such a way that those objectives which had remained a bit incomplete, they are completed. This is what He has mentioned in the book Al-Wasiyat. So now this second manifestation of Allah Almighty, how quickly we have to see the manifestation of this dominance. This all depends on our relationship with Allah Almighty, and our love with Allah Almighty, and the love with the Holy Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and also discharging our responsibilities towards fellow beings. Hazrat Masih Maud says in one place, Man kana lillahi kana Allahu lahu, that Allah Almighty never betrays any truthful person, and the whole world may become his enemy, but they cannot give him any harm at all. If the enemies, they show the enmity, they can't give him any harm. Allah Almighty is almighty, and that person comes under the protection of His might and protection, and sees a manifestation of His help, and there will be no disgrace coming to him. Remember it, that Allah Almighty uh,